Welcome to the Higher Intelligence Podcast, the podcast that blasts current events, social topics, and life's important discussions on a higher plane. We always encourage you guys to be positive, productive, and progressive, and we encourage you guys to ask yourself important questions and embrace honesty with yourself. I'm Paul Gordon, aka Diamonds, joined as always by my co-hosts, Matt Carlson, aka Maximilian von Butterscotch, and Chris Pregastis. What's going on, guys?
What's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, thank you, gentlemen. Let's get on with it. Today we're discussing a hot topic here in the United States for us and across many other countries as well in the world, but the millennial cannabis culture, covering both prevalence in modern culture and its uses from everything like crops, food, paper, textile, among many other things that we'll discuss later on. And we'll do some point-counterpoint about the cannabis culture and our generation's impact on that. I guess first we'll just jump into kind of the prevalence of cannabis in the millennial generation and kind of the progression that it's made towards both legalization and cultural acceptance. Matt, I mean, you were discussing a little bit earlier about the fact that it's been outlawed for, almost 100 years. And here we are as a culture that's coming after the first wave of free-spirited people, I guess you'd call them, that wanted to push for the drugs and whatever, but it wasn't as impactful into government as it is now with our culture. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think since it's always been such a faux pas to be a pot smoker. If you did it in the 70s or 80s, you were probably, especially if you were older, you were doing it in your garage and nobody knew about it, and it was a quiet thing. And in most of the world, it was still pretty faux pas to be a pot smoker compared to how it is today.
You were straight considered a hippie if you did it back then. Like, you weren't even given an opportunity. Like now, I mean, there are owners of multi-billion-dollar corporations that have come out and said that they smoke weed,
on a regular basis.
Yeah, and Arnold Schwarzenegger
and actors and
used it
actresses
as a training, tool, and he was the governor of California. So, I think it's much bigger than just back then it was.
Yeah, it was very hush-hush, and if you were a public figure, it was definitely very hush-hush, and now it's not. Now people are coming out and being like, you know what, you're right. This is time to agree that this is not a bad thing, and definitely not as bad as alcohol, which is already legal, or cigarettes, or prescription pills, or anything like that.
Right.
It's not nearly as damaging to the body. And if you want to use an argument that it's damaging, I'm sorry, you can't, because cigarettes are 10 times worse, and they are imbibed the same way that's most popular now. And if it was legalized, it would be a lot easier for people to imbibe it in a proper way that wouldn't damage their lungs or anything like that, maybe with a Silver Surfer vaporizer.
Right, yeah, shout out. That's what I was about to say, is that there's so many other ways of using the cannabis plant for either medicinal or recreational use. You can either cook with it and ingest both THC and CBDs. You can also inhale, obviously, through vaporization. And that's a really cool concept because you're eliminating the entire carcinogen factor that you get out of smoking something. Anytime something combusts, it's going to create carcinogens. You've set it on fire and you're inhaling that. When you eliminate the flame and the combustion, you're not creating a bunch of carcinogens. It's literally vaporizing the active THC and CBD out of that. So it eliminates quite a few of the health risks that do exist with it.
And as a caveat to the whole THC and CBD part that you get out of edibles, it's a completely different situation. Fair warning to anybody who hasn't done it before and doesn't know. Like, you need to calm yourself down and have one thing if you ever try it and you haven't done it yet.
I would just do research. I mean, it's just like we've talked about in previous episodes. It's, again, if you're interested in doing something, study it, figure it out. There's all the information in the world on where these things come from and what these things can do to you when you intake them in different ways. So, it's right. All out there. I would just say, just like with anything else we've talked about, do your research on it and find out which way would work best for you.
Yeah, I mean, we can just shout out a small precursor. I mean, there's many different things that come with both of them, but THC in general would be more of the mild psychedelic effect and is kind of considered one of the better parts of the recreational usage of it, although people find comfort in it for mental reasons as well. And it also, so medicinal, I guess, use of the THC would be for things like mental reasons. But then with CBD, they generally consider that to have a much wider scope of medical applications than
THC.
The THC.
Yeah.
So go ahead and research it, find out.
And you'll see that there's studies everywhere. But to get back to your original point, Paul, or your original question, I think the internet had a big impact on, to loop it back to our last podcast, right. I think the internet had a big impact on cannabis culture because it allowed people, just like with everything else, that all the other kind of niche-y things that came about because of the internet. Of course, cannabis was just not so much niche-y as it is mainstream now, but it allowed people to connect with each other. Like we know, so a guy who was smoking pot in 1996 in Florida could talk to a guy in California where it was a totally different experience to smoke pot, and people could connect and see that there's way more people than they thought. Not you're not just
right.
a weird dude smoking in your barn because you get stressed out, and your kids are asleep and you're whatever. It's not something terrible anymore. It's like, oh, a lot of people are doing this. It's just like cracking a beer at this point, and that's
right.
that spread of information, that spread of the ability
it's just like
to
cracking
talk.
the beer. On top of that, it's got hundreds of other uses that the plant itself, and just medically, it's got uses that would just it would decimate the modern, if it were just released as the ability to kind of use it as you saw fit, it would destroy the modern pharmaceutical companies.
Okay. Sold. How do we? Can you sign me up for that?
But it's. I mean, I don't know. That would take. I mean, it's going to go in a different direction once it starts getting.
Once it starts getting legalized, it'll be corporate.
Yeah.
It'll be corporate hostile takeover to the marijuana industry. So be prepared for that. And I think that luckily most marijuana smokers are intelligent enough and young enough and smart enough and open-minded enough to see that that's what's going to happen, what's going to go on, and the people who smoke pot are generally the people who respect the local business and respect the community aspect of it, and all of the different things that come along with it as building a community or group of people.
Well, so I mean, what if it just became like anything else? Like we don't, for the most part in the summers, we don't buy produce anymore because we've found a way to just kind of like grow our own food in the summers and live off that. And so if you can do that with pot, see, I don't know that it'll go in that direction because it might be illegal to grow it yourself.
We'll see though, because states have already made it legal to do that, and it has great success, and it hasn't caused any problems.
So if that's the direction it goes, then it really doesn't matter how commercialized it gets, because if you're intelligent enough about it, just like you are if you...
Yeah, but how many people are
They're not going to. It's not going to be the majority. There's going to be the majority of people that get their weed at Walmart.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to get your GMO weed.
Yeah, exactly. But there'll be...
Can I get a carton of weed?
There'll be the ability to grow it yourself and have an organic product. Just
how
like
funny is that going to be when you're like, fuck, man, you guys want to go in on a bag at Costco? Like, I'm sick of paying this nickel and dime Walgreens bullshit prices for weed, man. 7-Eleven is just sucking my wallet dry. $19.50 a gram. 7-Eleven, suck my dick.
But if you want like the most
fuck your free Slurpee. All right.
Yeah.
If you want the organic stuff though, you got to go to Whole Foods.
Yeah, exactly.
Man,
that's too crazy. Well, I mean, it's a reality that is really close. A lot of states are making progression towards legalization in full after seeing the model and the revenue that these taxes are pulling in for the state. I mean, it's all this revenue that didn't exist for them before, and now it's
a
huge deal.
Money talks, and I think that's what's going to ultimately do it. And it just needed to happen where a couple states sacked up and just said, we're doing it anyway. Damn the consequences. That's what we did. They're making stacks, and you do not turn. A government is not going to turn, their money away or their nose away from money for any moral standing. Sorry. You can see that with super PACs. They were like, you want us to pass a law to let you give us unlimited amounts of money to whatever you want to just give us to?
Yeah.
No, we'll definitely do that. Yeah,
exactly. It's almost the same thing as the story with the whole Obamacare thing. It's like all the states were opposed to it, and then they all took the federal money when it came in.
Yeah, exactly.
There were a handful of states that didn't, but when the checks actually came, they were used because it's money.
Because money talks.
Exactly. Right. So I mean, what's gonna be funny is how that fight works with the insurance companies, and if it the medical marijuana aspect of things
I'm sure that insurance companies will fight it at first. I'm sure the insurance companies and prison guard unions and big pharma are all the lobbyists that are lobbying against it, right?
Yeah,
those and beer. I'm sure the beer companies are lobbying. I mean, there's a lot of businesses.
Dollars that is at stake based on this crop going in, and there's lots of different sides to it. I'm reading a report out of Time magazine that says that the state of California has a marijuana crop total worth of $14 billion a year, and it's the state's most valuable cash crop.
So, and that was in 7 years that they were able to do that. Yeah. So calm yourselves down and imagine if we had 50 states pumping out their own per capita per scaled income of or crop of marijuana. And then if we got, because we're the U.S., if we start distributing it internationally and we just start telling everybody else, hey, UK, hey, Australia, hey, all these other places that we totally talked into this whole crazy Protestant, drugs are bad, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about, who's going to be, lobbying against this and the different things of what the cannabis plant actually produces. You've got printing paper, so you've got all sorts of paper companies that are going to be lobbying against it, hygiene companies. You're talking Procter and Gamble.
Yeah.
Talking everything. You're talking every single thing this plant makes better or has some sort of impact on in some way.
So imagine if we could have had hemp the entire time and we got free energy from Nikola Tesla. We could have had this entire capitalist society could have been completely dismantled and we would have been so much further advanced and happier and loving. You guys are dicks.
We would have. We would have.
Because we wouldn't have if we didn't have to have paper and destroy trees and deforestation and make all this garbage. If we could have had everything made out of this one plant that was easily grown, easily broken down, super strength, super chemical abilities, all kinds of awesome attributes that it has. Mm-hmm. And they can make houses out of it. They make protein powder out of it. They make, this is the most.
Make clothing out of it. Yeah. They make fiberglass insulation. Well, it's a fiberglass insulation substitute. They make hundreds of things out of it. It's literally like a super plant. It's the most,
and it takes 3 months to propagate and to crop, and
it's done. Called weed for a reason. It's not called weed because of any other reason than it grows like
gangbusters
when it's left alone in the wild,
right?
And it can grow at any climate, really, too.
Yeah, it grows in 5 of the 6 climate zones.
It's one of the most resilient plants across the planet. Literally, if you're a religious person and you think that everything on this earth was put on this earth for us to use by God, this is the super plant that God gave us.
This is the homie hookup.
Yeah. From God. Okay, this plant will solve most of the issues you guys come up with while
you won't have to fuck up my planet. Yeah. You won't have to. And you can be used to make biofuel, you motherfuckers. Exactly. We can.
At the end of the day, it's such an amazing, incredible plant, and what it's capable of creating. We're on the precipice of something special because it's something that could radically save our economy in a way that we didn't fathom, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think the world, I've read a lot of stuff about how the world viewpoint of it is changing based on our viewpoint of it. So
exactly.
all of a sudden you have
US,
a worldwide market of people propagating and creating marijuana markets and cannabis markets, and it's free to find the ultimate capabilities of what this plant can do, because this is just what we know based on limited research that we've been able to do for the last 25 years,
which a lot of it's been limited
by government.
Even
governments
all
over
funded,
the world. And it's not just the American government. Most governments all over the world have followed the U.S.'s step in this. And so if you give the entire world free reign to go discover what this plant is capable of, we're going to, I mean, on top of everything we already know and its medical and all of its other advances, we're going to find some really, really cool stuff out about this plant.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say, to drop an extra thing on your point, according to a poll done by the Associated Press and CNBC, they say about 1/3 of Americans actually do say they think that legalizing marijuana would boost the economy. 1/3 of Americans feel that same.
I mean, regardless if you smoke it or not, we are in a rut right now, people, and we need we're on a lifeline. All right, and we're getting this handed to us on a silver platter, this multi-billion-dollar new industry, and we're also taking it away from the cartels who have been sucking money out of our system, sucking our fake fiat currency right out from under our noses for the last 50 years for one reason or another. Ask the CIA, maybe, I don't know. So you're not only killing two birds with one stone. You're removing the bad part of the drugs, the cartels, the gangsterishness of it. You're legitimizing it, and you're replacing all of these. You're making so many industries more sustainable and eco-friendly and green and safe for us. And you're removing a lot of pollution and a lot of the things that are breaking down our planet right now.
Right.
Yep.
And it's great. It cleans soil. You can grow weed if you grow in. They've done tests with crops that have been ruined by GMO crops. Yeah. Like the fields that have been ruined by GMO crops, where they're planting weed or hemp in there and growing it for 2 or 3 cycles will completely clean out the soil. It sucks all the gross out of the soil. Actually, how crazy is that?
How do you? Just in the first 15 minutes of this and what we've talked about, how do you listen to that and say, you know what?
That shit's bad.
That is bad.
Yeah, and I mean, even, a lot of people get uptight, though, and how they say it is because the culture is on a swing right now. It's shifting to it's shifting to a different
and we're
norm.
Totally going to pendulum this thing, too. We're going to go so far to, like, the first year of weed sales is going to be so out of control. People who have never tried it are going to be buying it. Like, it's going to be weird. Gangbusters. Yeah. People, like, it's going to be gangbusters. But it'll come back to a medium, just like everything else.
Yeah, it'll balance
out. Like Prohibition, when it was over, the entire country got drunk.
Oh, read a fun fact about this today where they talked about one of the arguments for marijuana staying illegal is that it provides... youth get addicted to drugs at higher rates, or it's a gateway drug for youth.
Yeah.
So they've now done a 5-year study in the states that had already legalized it for medicinal use, which basically was recreational. Because you could walk into any store and be like, or any doctor and be like, anxiety, depression, whatever, and they'll sign it over to you. Let's be honest. So they did a study on the rates, and it was no different. There was no change in the rate of addiction on hard drugs in those states.
Right.
Like, it has no bearing on it. So
the other thing is that marijuana is one of the most readily available drugs on the planet, and
because it's not a drug, it's just a plant,
right,
it's just a weed.
Right.
It's not chemically enhanced for the most part.
You compare it to the other 2 most incredibly accessible drugs, which are alcohol and prescription. So prescriptions and alcohol and marijuana. And you're looking at marijuana as the one that is the
worst. You're crazy.
The word end all. And what's funny is alcohol is legal and marijuana is above cocaine and methamphetamines, which are Schedule 2 drugs.
Yeah, it's a Schedule 1.
And it's a Schedule 1.
Which
with
means
heroin.
it is, but
which means like
it's the highest form of addiction.
I saw a
no, that's not what it is. It's not that it's the highest form of addiction. It's ranked by a bunch of different things. I watched a video of the DEA director trying to explain it to a senator, and it makes no sense how they do the ranking. But.
Right, and the DEA guy was sitting in there, and that's what I was about to say. Is I heard the congressman telling the DEA guy that the biggest issue that he has is with the DEA, that they can't express after asking him, a dozen times to answer a simple question, which was, do you, sir, consider marijuana to be as dangerous as heroin?
That's right, and she kept deflecting it. No, it was
dodging. He just kept reflecting it. Exactly, just
deflecting the question and everything. And then he jumped on and said, do you feel? He said, in the wake of Philip Seymour Hoffman just overdosed on heroin, and in the wake of that, can you sit here in front of all of us and tell us that marijuana, which has not a single death reported from it, is as
in
dangerous.
Its history, not in the last year, not in the last whatever, in its history
is as bad as heroin. And when the guy got through the 12 times of being asked, and the congressman chewed him out and said, this is the problem with drugs in our society. It isn't that marijuana is a gateway drug. It's that you treat marijuana as if it is the same thing as heroin, the same thing, and actually worse than things like meth and cocaine. So what are you telling the people of this country? What are you telling the kids of this country? You're discussing with them that marijuana, which is one of the most accessible drugs and likely a drug that they'll try first, is the same as doing heroin, no crazy effects, whatever. So the likelihood of somebody taking you seriously, of the effects of heroin, of the effects of cocaine, of the effects of methamphetamines, is limited.
Altered. Yeah,
it's gone, because the kids are gonna smoke weed and be like, oh yeah, that was nothing, man, that was fun, let's do the other drugs. And then you're on to highly addictive and potentially deadly real hardcore drugs. And the DEA guy floored, just sat there, had nothing to say to it. How can you say anything to that? Because there isn't shit to say to it.
No, they're two different things.
I'm yet to find someone to give me a good argument as to why marijuana should stay illegal. Like I talked to a lot of smart people. We've been looking today. I can't find a valid reason.
Yeah, I mean, a few people will argue things like, lack of motivation and.
But you know what? Cheeseburgers do that too.
And that's because I know some of the most successful people I've ever known are, and maybe not habitual marijuana smokers, but they smoke weed.
Yeah,
they smoke or they ingest it somehow.
Yeah,
and. I just don't think that. I think that you can be lazy and do anything.
Yeah, exactly. You can be lethargic. Twinkies make you pretty damn lethargic, and I don't see you outlawing those. Right. Xanax makes you pretty damn lethargic, and I don't see you outlawing that.
Right. And besides the comparison of just outlawing something, I mean, I think this shouldn't be an argument over like, well, why isn't this outlawed versus this? I think what the finer point is to point out the fact that things like marijuana do help certain people do things and accomplish things, and other people can smoke or vaporize or ingest marijuana and THC and CBD, and they can get shit done. They can actually be a great person and a person who is a contributing member of society, and even own, like we know people that own multi-million and billion-dollar corporations.
Yep. I mean, I just don't. At this point in 2014, with all of the information that you have available to you, there's not a fight anymore. And the fight has now just turned, just like with everything else that we're seeing right now, the fight has turned to a religious ideal over anything else. Oh. It's the same thing with the whole creationist versus evolutionary theory to be taught to kids. And it's the same thing with just like it seems like all the debates in our country, especially right now, are Christian or non-Christian. Like, you believe in the craziness or you don't believe in the craziness, right. and it's
Some people, it's weird too, because I mean, some people have arguments based on like their view, and I mean, there's like the lady who was freaking out about marijuana use and how it destroyed her son and made him go from a straight A, like good student, all model, whatever.
Yeah.
And then he ends up becoming this lazy kid who's just playing video games and like fails in high school.
Well, and let's talk. Well, if you we don't want to go down this rabbit hole because the school system's so jacked in this country that that her argument's invalid because the test group has failed. All right, the entire school system needs to be thrown out the window and revamped. So
I agree.
her kid was lazy and dumb because he was getting forced busy work by somebody who was paid shit wages to babysit your kids all day long. Yeah. That's what happened. In case you wondered.
But it's for real though. It makes no sense that I think it's an individual. If you in any way either ingest, vaporize, or inhale THC and CBDs out of marijuana, you are either going to be noticing that you aren't capable of accomplishing anything while on it, or you are.
Yeah, you're more likely to have like an epiphany on marijuana and change your life for the better than you are to become. You're the type of person that's going to find something to become lazy and lethargic with, no matter what it is.
Well, to me,
whether it's beer, and how many people do that? How many people drink themselves retarded every day?
Right.
I mean, and no, we don't see them ban it. There's how many people die from alcohol-related deaths every year, and we're talking drunk driving accidents, we're talking alcohol poisoning, we're talking all the different diseases that come with it, cirrhosis of the liver, all kinds of different stuff that alcohol causes.
Yeah.
And you're looking at something that if you're talking about an unwind time, plant vaporizing, I mean, you're talking about inhaling vapor, not combusted material. So you're not smoking, you're inhaling, and you get the effects actually to a higher degree. And if that's your way of chilling out and you're not doing any kind of damage that's going to harm your liver, things that are, going to start tearing you apart and causing you to die. I mean, that's such a weird concept. Like, people just go, oh, I'm going to go out and drink for a good time and this and that. But it's like, yeah, it's fun to go out and have yourself some drinks. But to get shit-faced all the time and you're an alcoholic, I mean, you're slowly killing yourself. Just like on massive major drugs. And if you smoke too much marijuana, you might get the munchies and pass out.
Well, it's that same argument. Are we talking about why alcohol should be legal versus why weed shouldn't be legal? Right. Like it's not even an argument you can have anymore. Yeah. It's the information is out there. We have every bit of anything you can say on the subject about what marijuana does to people versus what alcohol does to people. There are countless more criminal cases that involve alcohol over weed, as far as domestic violence and things of that nature, like violent crimes versus non-violent crimes.
Nobody's getting high on just marijuana and slapping their wife around.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like impossible.
Yeah, it's you're getting high and apologizing and asking your wife to make you some brownies. Like it's not the same. It's
all you want is a bear hug and a bear claw.
Yeah. Right? It's just not the. And those are all stereotypes too. But we have so much information and we have so much access to it, and the fight just needs to be over, and we just need to concede the fact that we screwed up for a really long time and take it from here and go forward.
Yeah.
Because we've got the option.
Well, no, what we need to do is we really need to have like a serious investigation into why this happened, and then we need to have some serious adjustments.
That can all happen. Like, change the law in the country.
Right.
And retroactively get the people out of prison who are in there for no
That's
violent
the hardest
reason.
part, though, man.
Yeah.
Oh, taking all those people out of prison and reacclimating them and doing all the paperwork to remove, because what are we gonna do if we're charging them? If they've been to prison, then they've obviously got a felony. So what? You're gonna go back and retroactively? I mean, the court systems can't even get anything right now.
Yeah.
Let alone if they have to pull 20% of the prison population out at once. I mean, and then how do you do it? How is it fair? Now you're saying that you're impending on these people's rights to get out of there, but you're saying, well, we can't send you all home at once because it's just impossible. The logistics aren't there. So now some guys that's got to wait 3 months is like, man, I'm in jail for 3 months for no reason. I want recompense, and they're gonna start suing. Like, there's so much
that goes into
shit that has to be done,
but then
logistically to make
exactly.
this
so
work.
Why get into how it got like this? Like,
because in the end, we need to figure that stuff out.
We will figure that out. I have no doubts that once, just like anything else, once you start getting into it, there are Senate Judiciary Committees that happen, and there's all sorts of things and commissions that are everything that goes into these things. But the first thing you have to do is you have to make it right for the people that are being affected by it, and you have to make it right for the people who don't have access to the medicine they need to make themselves better.
Absolutely. Or to make their terminal illness better.
Yes.
Because that's what this Cohen guy, this Congressman Cohen, is it Mark Cohen? Paul, is that what his name is?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So Congressman Mark Cohen from Tennessee. He was from Tennessee of all places, all right? Tennessee. And he was changed. He was swayed. He was anti-drug. He was anti-marijuana. And then he was changed because he met a Navy SEAL veteran who had terminal cancer, and the only thing, and his 80-year-old mother told this Congressman Cohen, the only thing that gets him through the day and allows him to eat and even pretend to have a smile on his face through this misery that he's going through, and he knows he's going to die, and there's just nothing he can do about it, is marijuana. And when Congressman Cohen went down there and met him and had him explain, this man who served our country and is now dying, and probably dying in a shitty way because we're probably not taking care of him as well as we should have, right? Through the VA, is saying, this is the only thing that helps me get by, and you're gonna keep that illegal? Like, who are you to tell these people who served our country, who protected our quote unquote freedoms? Apparently, yeah. I guess we still have those. That protected our freedoms and is now dying, that he can't do something that does not impact anyone else and does not have any harm on any other person, that helps him tremendously. That is, I mean, who are you to try and even pretend that you have the right to say that to any other person?
I don't think, I mean, just basically, I don't think you have the right to say that to anyone, let alone a vet,
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to tell a single person how they can medicate themselves. It's right. That is between them. You want to get, you want to, the whole, that's, body. That's well, such a weird... and it gets back to the whole Republican point. It's between them and their doctor. You don't get, you don't want the federal government stepping in and telling you what you and your doctor should decide. And that was a lot of their argument with Obamacare. And now all of a sudden it's marijuana. It's like, no, you can't medicate yourself with that. Yeah. It's like, yeah, but
even if a doctor tells you, it's cool.
We have limited research, and this is what our limited research has told us that it does, including a World Health Organization study that says we need to stop with the facade of marijuana. Yeah. World Health Organization.
All the way back when the government in 1974, I believe, or one, the federal government paid to have the research done on marijuana, and they found that it had medical uses, and they submitted that report, and that is a documented report in government documentation that's out to review by the public. You can find this online. The government just said no, we're not. We know that we're not doing it. We're just going to suppress this, and we're going to make sure it's illegal because there's just too many things that are going on that we need to keep going on.
Right.
And now the cat's out of the bag. I mean, they are just reeling. There's so many things that they're reeling from, and I think that's why we're coming at them. I mean, this is like a combo punch right now. We hit them with the stop war kind of stuff, and then we caught them with a jab that was the LGBT rights, and now we're catching them with the uppercut, which is the drug law change and the responsible drug policy changes that we're asking for. Yeah, right. And we're catching with another one. And then who knows what this last one's going to be? Are we going to land the punch for internet freedom, or are we already kicked in the balls on that one?
I think the verge of knockout was re-electing Obama, because there are so many people that just hate that.
Well, no, because that's still a pretty small margin. Most people in this world don't really care that there's a black president. Mm. And on top of that, he's the exact same thing as anything else that can happen. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. He was used to sway a vote and make people feel comfy. And the same reason why Hillary will be elected in the next one, because they need somebody to rally women and make them feel good and warm fuzzies about that. We had a black one, now we have a woman one. The next one will have, a gay robot. It's gonna be like robot.
Well, there needs to be, there just needs to be
a lot of change.
Yeah, that needs to change a lot. But we've tackled a lot on this one, and it's a huge step in a direction. Like it's for our generation. We don't want to wait 4 generations for the things that are important to us to happen. And we really, there's a different thought process now, and it's inclusive rather than exclusive. And it started with our parents a little bit, and it got bigger with, the movements in the 80s and the 90s, and then the access to information that our generation had changed everything, because now it's inclusive globally, and we are seeing on a very, very, very regular basis what the rest of the world goes through.
Our trees shot the shit out of everything.
Yeah.
Was, because you think about it, because still, even to this day, only in like 2013 have I seen mainstream news sources actually talk positively about marijuana, or even talk neutrally about cannabis,
and finally admit that, mainstream news organizations finally admitting that there is medical uses for this plant, rather than it being the oogie boogie.
Yeah,
reefer madness.
They're raping our white women. Yeah. That was, what a good ploy that was. Dude. Right before the movement, the civil rights movement. Yep. They were like, oh man, we gotta use the black thing one more time on all these white people and get this stuff out of here, because we could fit to make a lot of money off of there not being hemp around, and keeping people in the dark, intellectually for a long time, without being able to smoke it. Because I'm sorry, but it opens your mind. It changes the way that your perspective on life, and for me, for the better. So
and it's it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. Neither is alcohol, and neither is Xanax, and neither is green tea and coffee.
But of all of those things, this is probably one of the least harmful to your body.
And you know what? It might really be for everybody, and we just need to start implementing safe ways and an intellectual, teaching about the plant and what it can do.
They should get rid of fluoride in our water and start putting THC in our water.
Yeah, well, a lot of places are putting fluoride out of water right now, which we'll talk obviously about this kind of stuff later. But the big thing is because it's causing this thing that creates streaking on kids' teeth.
Well,
so they're starting
on top
to
of
make it illegal.
A list of other things.
On top of a lot of conspiratorial things that may not be provable as of right now, but I've heard quite a few. Like, it reacts. I've seen people that say things about, like, doctors talking about how it affects certain neural pathways in your brain and inhibits firing of synapses and clogs up your neural pathways. Fluoride does.
That's crazy.
So it limits your intellect. It limits as much as it limits what your brain can do.
So that's great.
Wild. That's a study to check out.
Yeah, right. So, and I like I say, I don't even know if, even if this study was done really well, if it could. I mean, that would have to be a really in-depth, very expensive and developed study, and to understand the chemical
and a scary one to conduct at that. And you don't want that if they find out that you're doing it. Well, we digress. We've been doing a lot of research and studying a lot of different articles that point out studies about major health benefits, medical benefits for marijuana. Well, the list is huge, and a lot of the things, obviously, some of the main things like pain relief, cancer patients, the appetite. It's the appetite with cancer patients can.
But now they're finding, they were going to chemo, but now that you can take concentrated CBD therapy that's proven
and define
to be
CBD,
better.
Because you've said it a few times. Define CBD for people who don't know what it means.
Paul, you want to pull up the definition for us?
I'll just tell you. The cannabidiol is what it is, and CBD's one of the active cannabinoids inside of cannabis, and it's the principal chemical that they believe is responsible for the widest scope of medical benefits within the cannabis plant. And it's got a huge amount of medical applications. neurological effects, antimicrobial actions, psychotropic effects, cancer research has been done with it. I mean, it's all over being, tested out in different methods of receiving CBDs, like Matt's talking about right now.
So when, before it was used as an appetite, to induce appetite into people that were going in chemo, but now that there's CBDs, the CBDs that they found to combat cancers, and like 10 different kinds of cancer, and some of them like so incredibly well that we have nothing that even compares to it, that we've developed synthetically, and you now are removing that. I mean, this thing's snowballing. It's an effect. The medical uses are so many, and
control.
Even as self-prescribed. I mean, if you're depressed, smoke a little weed and it'll change your perspective. It'll probably open your mind up to being a hell of a lot less worried about the bullshit in life.
Right. And one of the things too, I think the principal eye-opening factors is seeing reality outside of the faux reality, if you will, that we are basically without choice force-fed every day. You wake up to your alarm clock, flip on your little morning news or whatever, and it's just
your morning filtered news.
And it's just a pile of media now. From the second you wake up, you're usually checking your phone, and
it's not even a pile of media anymore. It's just like you got Fox on one side that's pushing this like conspiracy theory, Obama's an immigrant,
they run the gamut,
and then you got the Obama cheerleaders on MSNBC just like running a train on the other side, and then you got CNN who's just like.
But they're all beholden to the same propaganda ministry, okay? We jacked that from the Nazis. We have running a propaganda ministry, period.
Yeah, and
the only difference is that there's access to information.
I mean, when you look at it, and this is something for like another podcast, obviously, but the deeper-rooted things behind that is that there's a system that is in place that's obviously a little bit swayed in the favor of few and kind of enslaving the rest into a model, if you will, like
slaves is
and
what
it's become like the new modern paradigm to wake up and see this wake up, go to work, kind of 9 to 5.
Well, not even that. I mean, you can
thing.
break it down. Wake up, brush your teeth. What you got to get your Colgate for, and you got to grab your toothbrush, and you got to put on your slippers, and you got to do like they built this whole system out of consuming and producing.
Yeah, and I mean, you're literally from everything you do, you're putting your teeth whitener on because you need whiter teeth and like all this stuff, and it's just these.
You're putting your Armani suit on, or your Calvin Klein, or your George from Walmart because you can't afford it. Whatever you're putting on, you're spending money on it.
Yeah, and you go eat all these different brands that you're consuming in the morning. You go to Starbucks to get your coffee. There's all these different things that it's pushing you to consume, and I mean, you're basically following this steady routine constantly. And
I just think that us as a generation, millennials, are breaking that, and that's the point. Is that we have that's the structure that the world has put up for us, right? And what we're trying to get at is like
we're trying to chip away the bullshit,
and it's probably marijuana that is the correlation between the three of us of why we've grown up this way and why we are this way and why we question everything. And I think that marijuana has helped me personally question a lot of the bullshit that goes on in my life.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, it makes you kind of take a step outside of the reality of things, look behind the veil, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It definitely inspires thought.
It inspires a lot of thought. And it cures a lot of diseases.
Yeah. It inspires a lot of good in people. I swear that like
I don't know a negative stoner. I don't.
Yeah,
like I don't know somebody who's like just a piece of shit stoner.
Yeah, I've never heard of somebody who's like he was addicted to pot and he killed himself.
No, I do know.
Right.
I know.
Like,
I know lazy stoners.
Yeah,
I have been.
But you know what? I know a lot of people who
are
are lazy as shit who don't smoke weed too.
That's true. Yeah. I know every type of individual who smokes pot. I
just like I know every kind of individual who drinks or
who doesn't drink
or shops at this store compared to that or anything else.
I don't think it needs the stigma that society has put on it anymore, and I think the facade needs to stop. Like that's my biggest point with this podcast is that like we just have to like stop is where we are, and we're and the lie. We don't need to rectify it right away. We don't need to go back and look at everything that has happened and figure out why we got here. We just got to stop with what we're doing, make the shift that needs to be made. And then as we because that's the point, is that we can research the hell out of this and find things that are going to decimate anything we know about modern medicine.
Right. To kind of broaden the horizon of these medical applications, I mean, we've seen studies where it talks about how it treats people with chronic migraines. I have a personal friend, he used to deal with them on a regular basis. He even played on our softball team, and I mean, it was a tough deal for him. He'd have to go to the hospital quite often because of migraines. And it's, migraines are pretty serious. If this can help people with migraines, that's a great treatment method, and better than popping liver, liver destroying.
Instead of popping
pills.
8 ibuprofen a day,
yeah,
that's just gobbling up your liver as much as it's not really helping your headache.
Out your blood to an unsafe level.
And then on top of that, there's things where different researchers at multiple cancer institutes and universities, medical centers, where it slows tumor growth. Another one where it relieves symptoms of chronic diseases, within the body, prevents Alzheimer's,
seizures.
Studies that have shown that it helps prevent seizures,
and epilepsy.
And
that's deeply personal for me. So that's a big one. The fact that I've read about families that are leaving my home state, that if it were legal when I was growing up, that, I mean, just to preface this, I was epileptic when I was a child, and it was, a lot for my family to deal with, and it was lots of research into many different things that got me out of it. But, if it's just funny to me that there are families going through the same thing that my family was going through when I was growing up, and they are leaving the state that they live in to go pursue treatments for their kids that are curing. I mean, there's this one article on ABC News. This girl was having 300 grand mal seizures a week, which a grand mal is the worst kind of seizure you can get. It's full body. It's full, like, your kid is convulsions, twitching. There's no control. And after 2 years of hemp oil treatment, she can walk, talk. I mean, she's completely fine. She doesn't have seizures anymore, and for that alone, I'm for it. If it were just epilepsy, I would be for it.
And if you can give me, like, seriously, I will give a challenge. I will come up with a prize for you if you can give me a very valid reason for marijuana staying illegal. Like, I will come up with something for you, because I've never met someone who can give me something that outweighs all of the benefits of.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, we're just looking for some things that are factual. I mean, some stuff, or even just studies that have, we've read studies of this and that and the other, but anything that's heavy enough to outweigh all of these wonderful benefits. And I mean, continuing on, things like treating glaucoma. Another one, help those with ADD and ADHD. Now, I don't know if I've got an issue with just focusing on one thing, but I'll tell you what, I get shit done when I.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it makes
allegedly.
menial things like great. Like, I can.
What's the line from Go to White Castle? What's that?
Harold and Kumar?
Yeah, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Have you ever tried farming not high?
Yeah,
like
tried farming not high.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, keep going, Matt.
No,
menial tasks fun.
I'm just saying, like, it makes menial tasks fun. Like, or not so unbearable. You can vacuum the house or do the dishes or whatever, and just get lost in your own thought while you're doing it.
Music on.
Exactly, and just jam out to it. I mean, I'm a nerd, and I listen to history podcasts like 16 hours of the day.
Yeah.
But that's what I get. Allegedly, I imbibe, and then I'll clean the house and be like totally happy with what I just did. You walked
into my house today. The house was clean. It was a
doing
good afternoon.
And everything.
Yep.
It's been found in studies that have been conducted again by major universities that are looking into this.
And governments. The U.S. government has found good has done research, paid for research to be done that has shown benefits of marijuana, and then
Health
repressed
Organization.
it.
Like you can go study after study after study, and these are limited. Like, be really clear that these are limited in the scope that they can actually study. They're not broad, overarching studies on the entire hemp plant. These are all individual studies on individual properties of weed. Imagine what is capable of what we're going to find out when it's all legal. It's it's just gonna. I have a feeling that this is gonna be the thing that, if we're going to continue to progress as a species, this is one of those things that has to happen, because we can't continue to vilify this plant anymore. It makes no sense. Yeah. It was laughable when there was a lack of information. Now it's just embarrassing.
Right, I agree. And I mean, discussing more in depth into the major amount of uses there are for this plant. If you just think of cannabis broken down between the seeds, the flowers, the leaves, the stalk, what we know so far are different things like, from the stalk, we have industrial textiles, things like twine, rope, nets, canvas, tarps, carpet, geotextiles, linings for brakes and clutches in cars, caulking, all sorts of things for industrial textile. Consumer textile, you can use the bast fibers from the stalk for apparel, for diapers, for fabrics. You can use them for anything, handbag wise, book bag wise, denim, shoes, any kind of fine fabrics you can make out of bast fibers from the stalk of a cannabis plant. And you've got things like paper. Printing paper alone from the herds or the pulp or the bast fibers and herds, you can make both quality paper and fine specialty paper, filter paper. You can make newspaper. You can even use it for packaging and for cardboard. Imagine cardboard.
And it takes 3 months to propagate this stuff, not hundreds of years like a tree, people.
And you wouldn't
think about this.
Contributing to deforestation.
Yeah, you wouldn't be contributing to
rainforest wouldn't be gone.
Which wouldn't be possibly contributing to pollution and global warming.
Let's not even call it global warming, because that trips
climate
people
change.
out. Climate change.
Yeah. It's getting colder in my area, idiot.
Yeah.
It's snowing in Atlanta.
Climate change. My apologies. Please argue semantics further. It gets you all kinds of places.
Yes.
Building materials.
Semantic arguments. I love it. So, going on to like building materials, you've got fiberboard, insulation, fiberglass substitute. It can be used.
That's so much stuff.
Yeah.
Like fiberglass is in
every single you go to any freaking house or commercial building.
Cement,
stucco and mortar. You know, it goes insanely large. You can still use it from mulch and compost, though. You can still use it for mulch and compost through like the leaves. Also with the leaves and the flowers, you've got the THC and the CBD chemicals that again can be ingested, vaporized, smoked, all sorts of different ways that you can use those, both for medicinal purposes and if you so choose, recreational purposes. And then the seeds. I mean, the seeds alone make so many things. Everybody's familiar with seeds being used. You've seen grapeseed oil. There's many oils that can be made out of seeds, and hemp seed oil can be used to substitute some of the chemical produced oils that you might have with salad oils, your margarine, any of your vitamins that have like food supplements in them.
And just to make this clear, it can't get you high.
Yeah, and this is non-cannabinoids. It does not have any active psychedelic properties. Yeah, the only piece that comes into play is during in the flower stage, which is basically the THC in this is what's gonna get you high, and that's from smoking, ingesting, all that kind of stuff. If you were to ingest a seed oil, you're not gonna get high from this. You will not be in any way, shape, or form ingesting THC, which is the psychoactive element in marijuana. So
let's just be clear that 90% of these uses you're not going to get high.
Well, yeah, all the other uses, things like the stalk. Yeah. I mean,
well, even
we're talking about the fact that you're eating this portion.
You're eating this stuff.
No, but even with the medical, like a lot of the medical stuff, it doesn't get you high.
Yeah. Well, some of it really fucking does.
Yeah, no, but some of the stuff
Chief Marin about what he did, or Tommy Chong. It was Tommy Chong. Ask Tommy Chong about how crazy high he got doing concentrated CBD to cure his cancer.
Oh yeah.
Because he said that he lost his marbles a couple times because it got him so high, and he's been smoking.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm the face of marijuana, and he's like, I thought I was too high a couple times.
That's too crazy. So, and obviously you can use, just like any other oils, use it as a cooking oil. And beyond the food portion with the seeds, you can use hemp seed oil for industrial products like oil paints, varnishes. You can use them in printing inks, fuel, solvents, lubricants. I mean, the list goes on with industrial products. Getting into certain areas, some people like to use them. I've seen it in tons of different personal hygiene things, the soaps, the shampoos, bath gels, cosmetics, lotions, balms. And I mean, take this seriously and think about how many chemicals. If you don't understand how many chemicals are in your shampoo, go read your damn bottle. Like I can't understand.
You can't. There's so many consonants. It's like reading a Russian novel.
Yeah. You are not gonna believe what's in there, and you just welcome to just rub this all over your body and put it all in your hair. Let it soak. Let it sit in for 5 minutes before you wash it out. And you put this in your hair and do this on a daily basis. You put this all over your body and let it soak in on a daily basis. These are the things that you have no clue what they are. You have no clue.
You can't even pronounce them.
Yeah, you don't even know what they are, and yet you're
Cannabis.
Like, oh, these are perfectly
it's easy.
fine because they're on your grocery shelf. That's not a legitimate argument. They can't just be on your grocery shelf and have a good reason for it. So personal hygiene-wise, I mean, the soaps and shampoos and bath gels, I mean, it makes sense because you're getting things that are made purely from the hemp seed oil. And then with the seeds too, you can use it for animal feed, bird seed if you want. And some people I know use it in granola mixes.
Onnit makes an awesome hemp protein mix.
Yeah. And it's protein rich fiber.
Yeah, super protein rich.
Super protein rich fiber out of that. So that's from the seeds. And, on top of it, they found that the whole plant itself can be used for boiler fuel.
Biodiesel too. You can use it for biofuel.
Yeah. And it's insane. And moving into like agricultural stuff too, you can get it helps with isolating pollen. It needs less like pesticides than most crops because it is so incredible at growing. It does help suppress weed plants around it because it takes up.
It gobbles up nutrients in the soil like crazy.
And weeds don't typically grow around it. And it helps your soil improve in your crop rotation because it is such a
robust plant.
Yeah, exactly. Like a very robust plant. And then the deep roots are just natural aerators in the soil. So if you were to grow crop in the soil with or around these plants, they help other crops grow better unless Monsanto gets a hold of marijuana seed.
Which we can assume is going to happen at some point.
But that's why it's important to
plan for this stuff. They're giving us room to plan for this. Let's
make
do
sure
it.
you've got your ducks in a row and that you're as
a movement, we need to do that. The people who are moving and shaking and forming this and pushing the boundaries in the states
lazy about it.
Yeah. Like you need to be constant vigilance on this, and we seriously need to make sure that we have a powerful voice in the government.
This could flip on us so fast.
Yeah.
It could be commercially.
You're gonna
could get
Monsanto
regulated.
Marijuana.
And then that is no better for you than anything else you're ingesting on a daily basis that kills you quickly.
Yeah, and then we lose control of the good qualities of it, and it becomes.
It's just it's such a.
Corporate.
I don't know. I don't know how I can explain it because it's had such a
profound impact.
I was gonna say just positive effect on my life personally, and the relationships that have been developed because of it.
Yep.
The practical uses that I've seen it happen in my life. The alleged ease in which I grew it for the first time.
Right.
It's such a, just everything that I've experienced with it I've never really experienced anything that has shaken me negatively. It's all just everything that I experience with it is a very, very positive interaction, and the people that I have met because of it and the friendships that I've forged because of it are just...
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with seriously everything you're saying. I mean, it's just a positive impact, overall. And again, same thing. I've built some great, both oddly enough, great friendships, but both business relationships have just, immensely propelled my career into a realm that I was hoping to even get to. And, obviously a lot more room to grow, but I'm just elated at the things that I've been able to do. And they were sparked by a common interest, I guess, if you will.
And the coolest conversations, man. I've had the best conversations, just waxing poetic with people. You really get to know somebody. It breaks down some sort of boundary, some sort of wall that people put up as defense in like this bubble reality that we live in. Like marijuana, like alters your mindset and makes you say fuck the bullshit so much that like it breaks down these mental walls that you put up, these defenses, and allows you to think more freely and interact with people more honestly. And just, it blows my mind that religion didn't appreciate this long ago. Like, there are some like Rastafari and things like that, but it blows my mind because it's like all the things that religion preaches, love one another and, treat everyone how you want to be treated and, all these great things that religion is supposed to do. These values. It's like, these values, and it's just right there, and it doesn't make you even go off of faith for it. It just helps you. It just says, hey, check it out. You totally don't even have to care about any of that silly stuff. Yeah. Try me.
Like, here's the more important things. And that's what I feel like it does, is it breaks down the wall of the reality of this world that we live in. Instead of just constantly consuming what you're told, you're out actively seeking what you want to know.
Well, and it filters a lot of that stuff, too, because it allows you to view it in a perspective that you can maybe say, maybe that information that I'm getting right there is just complete nonsense.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, I don't know. Be open-minded about it. Like, don't take it. If your argument is religious, I'm not going to listen to you. If your argument is about the merits of its medical uses, let's have that argument. But and you're gonna watch, lose. And you're going to lose, and this is just based off limited amounts of studies with a very specific scope. I'm so adamant about what this plant is going to do to our society that it's not even like fathomable. We have an opportunity, and our generation, we're the one that's going to push it through. Like every generation before us has they've been knocking that door down, and they've been pushing it. And it's almost like I loosened it for you thing when you're trying to open the peanut butter jar. It's like we're going to knock that door down and dive through like in a huge way. I have no doubts about it.
Well, it's funny when I talk to older people who use cannabis, they talk about, the old days and how this isn't the same stuff and whatever. And but they don't say it in a bad way. They're just saying like it's so much of a different lifestyle and culture than it was, when they were doing it.
Yeah. Because there was no knowledge about it back then. Yeah. It was just
something
weed.
Cool that you knew. Drug.
You can go to a dispensary. I mean, even when I was 18 and I went to Amsterdam for the first time, it was like that was walking into a store and being able to select from 50 different strains of marijuana was incredible.
Absolutely.
And that's another thing.
The scientific facts.
That's another thing that's bullshit about not having it legal.
Well, yeah, you need to be able to touch into the realm of what different strains can do for you. That's what's a beautiful thing. Marijuana isn't like anything else. It's not like a Xanax, like where a Xanax is a Xanax. Marijuana comes in different styles, think about it like any other different plant. Strains. Like, these strains literally have different effects. And for people that want to relax and calm down, they have the Cannabis indica plant. And the Cannabis indica plant is a more chill kind of overall body high that creates more of an effect of relaxation and kind of just kick back. Whereas the Cannabis sativa plant is much more uppity, kind of get your cerebral high going. Where
mental stimulus.
It's a mental stimulating one. And there's hybrids of both where you get both of the worlds.
And there's a science between growing it.
Yeah, it's a science to growing it. It's a pretty incredible plant. All these different things like medicinal applications are phenomenal. The economic consequences of this could be incredible, with economists coming up with figures like $100 billion industry for our country.
It's $14 billion in California
alone.
Yeah.
So
they're projecting at another like $6 billion in Colorado,
right.
Another like $4 billion in Washington.
And then on top of that, think about how much money is being saved by not having to use taxpayer dollars to get people incriminated using officers' time.
That's the problem. The number one lobbyist group against marijuana rights is the prison guard union. And it's because they don't want to lose the prisoners because then they're out of jobs. Right. 20% of the prisoners go. Guess what? That means 20% of the prison guards go as well.
Yeah, 20% of arrests in this country are for marijuana.
Non-violent drug offenses.
Non-violent drug offenses for marijuana-related offenses. If you think about that, 1/5 of the prison population, it is the largest category for crime in our country, and the fact that it is crime is criminal. It's a money-making system, which we will save all of that for a new podcast. But
I just wanted to throw this in there that, a lot of what we're talking about is factual data at this point. Like, you just really can't argue it. And a lot of it is just our personal opinions and how we've experienced it ourselves. So don't take a lot of what we're saying, about our personal experiences with it or what we feel about like what it does as if it doesn't do that for you. So be it.
Like we always say, go out and find out for yourself and study this stuff.
Regardless of all of that, if you're out there, do not restrict people's access to medicine. Like that's what you can't be ignorant about.
Don't restrict people's access to anything.
You can be
it's
ignorant.
Not your right.
Yeah. Exactly. You can be ignorant to all of. You can think whatever you want of it, but if you're listening to this and there's even a question in your mind, that you just cannot limit people's access to anything, but especially if it's medically conducive to what they're trying to get over, what they're trying to get through in life. Like that's, and we're talking about debilitating diseases. We're not talking about a cold. We're talking about death and confronting that and being able to prolong that with a plant that is cheap and robust. That, it just doesn't make any sense. And just to caveat the next podcast, we would as a nation, the figures economists are coming in with is over $100 billion in revenue for the country. And we would also save over $8 to $10 billion in fighting the drug war a year.
Yeah.
Just with marijuana.
Just
Just from the DEA. That doesn't include the prison industrial complex and how much money we would save.
It's almost $50 billion.
Yeah, and that's another one we'll talk about. We'll get into for-profit prison as well one of these days, because that's some other bullshit that needs to be discussed.
It's for-profit prison is definitely subject to pod fodder for another cast.
So I think the point to all this is that you need to go out and educate yourself on what this plant is capable of, what the limited research we've been able to do has proven to us, and really, really get a nice understanding of where this issue is going to go in the future, because we need a logical, intelligent generation on this subject, and we cannot continue to be blinded by whether it's corporate America or the government or the global, government, whatever, is trying to put over your eyes anymore. This has to be
propaganda.
Yeah, this has to be a shut book of a subject.
And you need to just be able to take this plant and dissect it and get it studied. And understand its full
I think this is our generation's real opportunity. Like, this will be what we will go down in history for. LGBT rights is the same thing. There are certain things that we can hang our hats on as a generation, as millennials, and this is going to be, in my opinion, our signature one. We need to recognize that this is going to be our renaissance, and this can be our renaissance subject. Like, I think that this, the ability that this one has to affect people worldwide, because LGBT rights is going to affect people in America, but you're 200 years away from Sharia law, even considering. The Olympics are scathed with that. Worldwide, globally, the world will follow what America does on this subject.
Right.
The world may not follow what America does on LGBT rights. There will be certain countries around the world that trickle in, but the world will follow what we do on medical marijuana and marijuana legalization in general.
Yeah.
And if our generation pushes this shit through and makes it unacceptable for this to be the standard anymore, this will be what the
millennial generation was known to kind of put in the forefront and tackle and win.
All right, well, let's do it. I heard that Chris Pregastis had a teaser for us on the next part for the next podcast.
I did. It's the stats on how much money we would save as a country. So you're looking at over $100 billion in tax revenue and over $10 billion in savings just to the DEA. That's right. So that's a little teaser on what we're going to get into next time. But
very nice. Well, man, as always, we want to thank you guys so much for tuning into the Higher Intelligence podcast. We always encourage you guys to be positive, productive, and progressive, and ask yourself the important questions and embrace honesty with yourself. I'm your man, Paul Diamonds Gordon, rolling with my co-hosts, Maximilian von Butterscotch Carlson, and our man, Chris Pregastis. We want to thank you guys again for listening to the Higher Intelligence podcast, the podcast that blasts current events, social topics, and life's important discussions on a higher plane.